Hey, how are you?
Hi, doing quite well. And you?
I'm good. Thanks for joining.
No problem.
You make assets for Unity. You make, in fact, beautiful nature assets. Do you make these assets yourself or do you work with a team?
Yeah, we have right now five-person team, four developers and one person that's responsible for marketing, social media, and similar things. We have technical artist. We have second 3D artist slash technical artist. We have Tomek, who is just 3D artist, and we have Bat, who is designer, technical artist, and environment artist. Yeah,
Okay. And
as
is
we are
it,
as we are a small team, we have to do lots of things as always.
yeah, I bet. Is it run by one of you?
We are co-partners, yeah. Because of the law in Poland, one of us has to be the leader of the company, and it's bad. But we all the major decisions we always hook up on Skype and talk to each other what we are going to do. So we mostly decide four of us, and that's it.
Okay, wow. So, how is that to run a company where all of you are hands on and it's shared between so many people? Don't you come across like conflict a lot? How do you work with that?
Yeah, there are always conflicts. Yeah, people are different. We have different approaches, but uh, I think throughout the years we know each other too well to have some major conflicts. We know how we work. We know what everybody wants to do, and we are now on the moment that we can work together on even major problems.
Okay. That's good. How long have you guys been working together in this way?
Uh, I started working with Bart in first in 2014, but it was as he was creating MMO game. It was his first game, so yeah, he's one of the persons that started his first game as MMO, and they finished it and delivered it, and it's still live. He went out of the company after it was published, and now he's working on new assets. But yeah, he was one of the persons I know that started his first game as MMO, and he finished it. Yeah, it can be done.
I've
So
never heard of that before. Wow. There you
yeah,
go.
I made them as one of the systems to the company to this MMO game as contractor, and then but asked me if I want to do with him the same system but as asset to asset store. Yeah, so we built this kind of system and we released it on Asset Store. It was World Streamer. That's quite old asset nowadays. It was in 2015. Yeah.
Wow.
So we first started, then Tomek joined us after I think 2 years, and Shimon after a few months later. They are all three of them are from the company that created this MMO. It's called
Wow.
Gloria Victis.
Gloria Victis?
Yeah,
And it's still running.
yeah, it's still running. They because they released it back then into early access, and now I think it was last year it was fully released on Steam.
Wow. How long did they spend on that MMO?
So it's to this date, 8 years, 10 years, something like that.
Wow. Cool. So are they going to keep making games? Are you going to join them? Or do you guys like focusing
No,
on asset creation now?
all four of us that when we fully went into assets, I think we won't be going back because it's more simple way. It's more familiar to us. Sometimes we want to make game and we are planning if we do something, but maybe in few years. Like now, I don't think so in closer time.
That's cool. So, all right. What is the process of making these assets? They're mostly nature focused, right?
Yeah.
Can you tell me, like, first of all, how do you pick what you're going to make? Actually, let's start with that. How do you pick which asset you're going to make?
We mostly do what most teams do. We brainstorm. We brainstorm for a few months, yeah, each time before we decide what we are doing. And after brainstorming, we are looking during this brainstorm to asset store. We're looking what pictures we can take in Poland because we are mostly using photogrammetry to generate the content. So we are looking around Poland, what we find fun pictures, what fine assets we can create, and depending on what our 3D artists with their phones and with their cameras do throughout vacations or holidays when they're hiking or doing some photos, and we are choosing what we can make from it the next asset. Yeah, and
Wow.
then we are from, I would say it's pre-production phase. Yeah, taking some photos, making some concepts, looking throughout internet what fun locations or something we can adjust to our needs. And and then we are thinking about what tools we will need, and what tools that we have we can use to them, because we are releasing the nature asset, but we are also releasing tools. Yeah, but to each tool we are releasing to asset store, we have about, I would say, 5-to-1 ratio of tools that we have in house that we aren't releasing yet to asset store. We are using them ourselves to create our assets. Yeah,
Sorry, you 5 to 1 on what?
5-to-1 in-house assets to assets that in-house tools built in Unity, built in Unreal or other programs to those that we finally release to store. For example, when we first created our forest asset that won the Unity Award, we have created to it 5 tools. Only one of it was released with that asset. It was the roads to because we have tool to create rivers, but we also added possibility to create lakes and roads. But we
Wait a
also
minute. Sorry. Which asset is it that you're describing that you're
yeah,
working
I'm
on?
describing that forest asset.
The forest asset? Yeah, yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when we created it, we created 5 tools.
Okay.
And most of these tools, I think we released with that asset. We released only one update, the tool that was to roads and the lakes, because this is something we didn't have before. And we
Hmm.
had 3 more tools that we have hidden, and that you can check if you check the names in the forest asset, that there are names of these tools in the hierarchy, because we deleted the tools, left the objects in the hierarchy. For example, fence tools or some objects that have banded or something like that. And this tool was released this year with our new lava asset. Yeah. So it took us 3 more years to finalize the tools that we were using back 4 years ago.
Oh, which was the one that was sorry, released with the lava asset that you were using in the forest?
Fence tool,
The fence
the
tool.
tool that helps you create fences, but also helps you create some walls or some riverbeds that you want some logs aligned to the river. Yeah, this is something that we have. We used it internally for 5 years, something
Wow.
4 to 5 years, yeah, before it went into public with this update, yeah. So going back to our initial question, so in pre-production we think what tools do we need also to create, yeah, because
Mm.
it takes time, and then we are going into production. I'm first making tools, but is thinking about shaders and preparing some first version of shaders, so 3D artists can get the models and check with the new version of shaders inside Unity. And they are creating models from photogrammetry, creating textures and everything that is needed to this kind of assets. So this is our production phase. The last part of production phase is getting it all together. Mostly we are doing it this way, that Bart is taking all our tools, assets, shaders, and he's creating the beautiful maps that you mostly see when you are releasing the asset. Creation of
You
this scene
mean
takes us about
wait,
three.
sorry, I want to make sure I'm following as you're
Yeah,
explaining. When you say create these beautiful maps, do you mean the example scenes?
yeah. The
Yeah.
example scenes.
Okay.
We mostly would create 1 or 2, depending on size of the asset. Yeah, nowadays it's I think 1 scene, because to create this scene it takes about 6 months. Yeah, up to the moment we are creating the scene, it takes us 2 years of work on this asset. Yeah, so and at this point we are starting to create the environment scene, and during creation of the environment scene we are testing shaders, testing tools, and testing everything that we have created to this moment, and checking for all the bugs that we can have.
Wow. So,
So
in total, how long does it take to make each of the assets?
uh, from 18 to 24, I would say, even the mountains were longer, from 18 to 30 months of work on each asset.
Okay, wow. I mean, look at the lava behind you. Your
Yeah,
work is clearly paid off.
this lava. It took me 2 years to facilitate all the shaders and all the codes to make it run fast, to look this nice, and so on.
Yeah, I remember you sharing some video footage of it when it wasn't quite done, and like it already looked really cool, and then you've somehow managed to take it to this very realistic version of it. It's really high quality
And
asset.
to
It's
be
great.
truthful, it isn't fully released yet because some of the things that we created were so big that we couldn't handle it into one asset. We split it into 3 assets that will be, I hope, released this year. The first one was lava. The
Hmm.
second one will be because when I showcased it earlier, there was beautiful castle and the lava was flowing under it. So the castle will be second asset that we will be releasing. And the
Hmm.
third one will be new river auto material asset with beaches, with oceans and post processing. That's the third asset that will be using the same things we created only for one. But because there are some limitation on asset store that the assets can't be bigger than 6 GB, we had to split it into several assets to have this limit.
That might be better anyway because people might only need one of those three anyway.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
that's why if we create too much things, we have to split it them and then move it to different assets or some different releases. Yeah.
right. So, I mean, you can still showcase them together, can you not? Can you not still show like images and
Yeah,
video of the three together and then say, by the
yeah,
way, here's our
that's
other asset if you
that,
like that?
that's the plan for the last part. And going back because that's not the end of the asset production. I would
Okay.
say because then we are preparing to the release. It mostly takes us from 2 weeks to 1 month of taking images, making videos, post-processing videos, preparing marketing, talking to streamers, influencers, asset store team, and so on. So everything's hooked up on the asset store side. Yeah, as we are
And then,
premium asset store releaser, we can ourselves decide on what date we will release the asset. The smaller
yeah.
asset creators don't have this luxury. You have
Hmm.
to have several assets delivered to asset store with 5 stars and so on to be able to decide these kinds of things.
Hmm.
And then there's, I would say, a month or 2 months after the release of constant support that we sit on the forums, we sit on the Discord, we sit on our emails, we fix bugs, talk to people, talk about our assets and market them everywhere else. And we always treat this phase as asset production. Yeah, so we have it. Mostly our asset is to sum up it, divided into phase. Pre-production, when we decide what we do, then we are working on the asset, then we are preparing for the launch, and then launch, and then after launch support.
Right,
And we always, when we are in the pre-production, we plan all of these phases together.
right. That's smart. When it comes to support, you mentioned a month of constant answering questions and troubleshooting and bug fixing. Do you guys like what does the support look like beyond a month? Because you've had assets that have been out for years now. Do you still have questions about those? Do you still answer those as quickly, or do new assets take priority? How does that work?
Yeah, I would say 2 months ago I had a question about asset that's working on Unity 2018 because somebody can't update beyond that version and he wanted some fixes to the tools. Yeah, and we support it. We support all of our assets till as long as they are on the store because we have some assets that aren't at the store. We close them, then we are supporting them. Yeah, the 1 or 2 months I was talking about is the time we know we will have lots of support. Yeah, because lots of people will buy this asset at this time, and we will have lots of support for it. So we are prepared. We are also talking with our regular customers that we know will buy these tools, and we know they will be testing them first days after the release. Some of them may get this asset for free because we know that we can count on them as our beta testers for these assets. Yeah. So this
Mhm.
is the time that we are planning as the massive support amount, and we know that we won't be able to work on other assets during this time. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Um, that's it sounds like it's quite a process to do, but it makes sense because, like I said, they're high quality. There's a lot of moving parts in them. You know, as you mentioned, there's the actual 3D art, but then there's a lot of what's the word I'm looking for here? Like, for example, with the nature asset, there was wind, and there's
I would
water flowing,
I
and
would
there's
call
like
it technical
waterfalls.
art.
Technical art, yeah. So you guys have a lot of I almost want to say, I know that you guys kind of demo them in the videos, but it's almost unexpected. It's like a nice, happy, unexpected thing when you're playing with the asset. I'm like, when I was putting in the trees and everything, I just clicked, oh, add wind. And then suddenly there was wind and they were all blowing. I was like, wow, this is so cool.
Yeah, this is one thing that we are always looking for and always checking. I think Bart has a very well touch in UX, yeah, because
Hmm.
I prefer also simple UX, that someone that takes it, I mostly try to do it that each asset works in 3 clicks. So you can, for example, for tool, you have to do no more than 3 clicks before you have the asset ready and working on the screen, and you can say, wow, it works. Yeah,
Mm.
this is we are always checking. If you take, for example, ram the river, you take 1 click to create it in hierarchy and 2 clicks on the scene to create 2 waypoints from 1 to 2 when the river will show up on the screen.
That's for the fence?
That's for the river. I
The
think
river,
the
right.
yeah,
Yes.
lake
Yeah.
needs
Yeah.
4 clicks, but the lake always needs triangle as the smallest possible lake. Yeah, that's why
Right.
you will need it. Yeah, but that's things that we always look. Yeah, and for the same for the p- kinds of prefabs we are creating for the trees, for the grass, for the rocks, that it always has to be many types of prefabs that you can always take and put on the scene, and it should work. Yeah, depending on the type of prefab you need and depending on type of scene you have. So we always try to accommodate what's needed, what's not needed. Yeah. So, for example, in the lava scene, this one, for example, you see these rocks over here. They are hot from lava. Yeah.
Mm.
And these kinds of prefabs are when you put them close to lava river, they start glowing and start getting hot. So we have one prefab that's getting hot, but we also it needs additional tools that are on this log, additional mono behaviors and scripts, and they are more heavy to this kind of scene. So we have second kind of prefab that doesn't have it if you don't need it to make them hot. And we always try to think what usage of each prefab person can have. So it's always giving as much possibilities to the developers as we can.
Yeah. Wow. How do you guys maintain a good performance with these? How do you optimize them?
Uh, I think 2 things. One is knowledge we gathered through years, yeah. And I'm a optimization fanatic. I love optimizing everything up to the smallest thing I can optimize as well as we can. But we aren't always optimizing them fully. There's one problem with optimizing them fully. They won't be usable to normally Unity users. Yeah, because if I go to level that I know how I can optimize a shader and writing in each line of code in the shader from the best perspective I can, but then if somebody else looks at the shader, he won't know what's happening there. Or the same with
Mm.
code. If I can optimize the code to the lowest possibility, many of our users won't be able to use this code themselves. So we always have to balance between getting great performance and being friendly to developers. Yeah.
Yeah. I see. That's an interesting balance that you have to look
Yeah,
at.
that's the different balance between us and the game developers. Yeah, because game developers always prefer performance. But if we make something that's very well performant, what won't be usable in someone's games, then we don't create the tool that we need.
How do you, like, it's optimized, for example, in the scene that you make in a demo. How do you tell the user, or how do you stop the user from just putting in like a million of one game object that's really high fidelity? Or is there anything that you do to try to guide the user to not like almost like abuse the asset and use it in a way that's going to cause
We
problems?
we always try to train our users or tell them or point them to knowledge they need to create games, because there are, I would say, three types of users. First type, which we were talking about, are beginners or even regulars, but don't know how to optimize the game. Then we want
Hmm.
to showcase them, talk to them, and show them what types of knowledge they need to be able to do it. Yeah, because we can tell them you should do this, this, and this, but they want to know further why. So we always try to be, um, how to say it, always want to be talk to them very simply and talk to them without getting angry that they don't know everything. Yeah, because we know that
Right.
there are many of our users are people that aren't game dev types. They wouldn't work full time on games. Many of them, I would say, even 50% of people is just doing it for fun.
Right.
We can't be harsh with them because they cannot have this knowledge. So we have to teach them. For example, Bert, you know the word steamer. They are asset that steams the entire world. Yeah, it's mostly created for AAA or open world games. These are big games, very hardcore to create.
Hmm.
So I think we have 1 or 2 hours of tutorials how to create these types of games. We have a very big manual that showcases every step of it, and we teach people how to create open world scenes for these people. Not only how to use our tool, but also how to create these scenes. And the last thing we had was, because we had many questions that were like, okay, I'm creating new GTA 5. I just started developing games. How to use your assets to create a game like that? We had prepared, answered. I think it was 2 or 3 pages long answer that we copied, pasted, and sent to people to showcase them. Okay, for example, GTA 5 was created by this kind of team. Then you need this type of people. You need this type of knowledge. Here are the links to it. You will most likely need to work with several people. If you do it alone, you have to know this, 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 and this.
That
And
sounds like useful. Those sound like useful guides. Where did
yeah,
you publish these?
we didn't publish them. We mostly send them to our clients or people that asked us about it. Yes, so we try to always look what people have problems with, and it can be very many different problems.
I see. So you've prepared these to give to people when needed, but not necessarily
Yeah,
just
because
putting it
we
out.
mostly prepared them based on how many clients asked us this question.
Yeah.
The question for what steamer, I think, when we released it first time, I think we received this type of questions 10 times a month. So it was lots and lots of questions. So we sat down, rather than answering each person sentence by sentence, we prepared some kind of guides for them to use.
That's a smart way to do support.
Yeah, yeah, but that's what we have to do. Yeah, as asset developers, we are teaching people how to use assets, but also teaching people how to use Unity many times.
Hmm. And who's responsible for this side of the company? Is it you guys take turns?
No, it's me and Bart. We are the two that are mostly checking and talking with people. Yeah. Or if there are some major questions to the 3D artists, then we are hooking up with the 3D artists and they help us in some major questions. But as I know 3D art quite well, but also knows 3D art quite well, we all can answer to 3D art questions without any problems.
Hmm. So you're combining a number of skills. You mentioned photogrammetry. You clearly have you have the 3D artists and you have technical artists. Um, you yourself, how did you get to this level? How did you learn the things that you know? And how did you start making assets in the first place?
Uh, I myself, I'm not typical person. first game I played, I was 40 years old, and it was Space Quest 2. Yeah.
Okay.
What was funny, it was my first overnight game because my father played with me. He fell asleep, and I still played during the night. 4 years old. Then, when I was 6, he brought home Spectrum. My father is also a computer specialist, but he's more in networks and security and stuff like that. But he
Okay.
broke Spectrum when I was 6 years old. He showcased
Mhm.
me how to. I would just barely wrote anything, but he showcased me how to write simple programs like if and question. So you write if, question, answer, answer. Yeah, and I wrote simple game. I think it was 5 questions long, so I called it a game. But that was the moment that I started me. I want to make this. I know I can make a games. I want to make games. So from that moment on, I started learning games. So it was quite some time to this day. So during my primary school, secondary school, and studies, I always wanted to make games. So I learned them by heart. But I think my road started at most at my studies. I studied two courses. One was computer science. Second was maths. So I'm a mathematician. I have masters in mathematician and masters in computer science. The masters in maths helps me with the optimization. Yeah,
Mm.
because knowing math, I can go to some levels of deep mathematics that go how shaders work on the lowest possible level, or how the CPU works, and how to get squeeze them as much thing as I can. So yeah, and then I started as programmer. Yeah, because this is what I loved. But I also, when I was in primary school, I also learned how to do 3D models. Yeah, and I tried.
So, wait, before you keep going, I'm just curious. You mentioned when you were young and you got the Spectrum and you decided to be a game developer. Was that what guided your path into computer science and then into your master's in math, or was that not necessarily why you did it?
Uh, Maths was because I could do it. And my university allowed to have two courses that were connected and have most, how to call it, most lessons to be together. So I can have several, I could overlap my studies together. So I had to take 1/3 less subjects than I normally would have to. Yeah.
So I take one what?
Less less courses, less lessons from different kinds of. For example, I have to do geometry once, not one for computer science, one for mathematics. Yeah,
Oh, I see. Okay.
many of them were together. Yeah.
Okay.
I think I did my because of it. I first started math because I didn't. That was I didn't get to master's course in studies of computer science because you needed too much points in mathematics for me to get to computer science. So I first started my studies at mathematics, and I think I moved. I started my computer science when I was on fourth year of mathematics, and I ended my masters. I did my masters in computer science in 2 years. Yeah, I did my mathematician in 5 years. So this is why I also did the mathematics. I mostly wanted to do computer science. The biggest problem back then in Poland was that there weren't any possibilities to study computer games. There were no studies. Nowadays,
Hmm.
I would go to doing masters in computer games. It's lots
Right.
of courses, lots of possibilities to do it. I think when I was on my fifth year, I also started talking with inside the university. They have to start masters in computer games. They started it, I think, 3 years after I left the university. Yeah, so and I was one of the first teachers that taught computer games on this university a few years later.
I see. So you've done a lot of education. And so you had this idea that you wanted to go into game development. You decided to go into the most closely related fields. Did you
Yeah.
have the anticipation of joining a studio, or did you always want to do your own thing?
Uh, I first wanted to join a studio, but I couldn't find any in Poland, so I started working as a programmer. And after, I think it was after half year, I talked with my boss that we should start making games, and we did. So there's my boss was back then in subcontract work. So our company worked subcontracts for other companies doing some web development, computer programming, and something like that. And nowadays, I left that company after 6 years of working. Nowadays, they are one of the bigger game developers company in my city and one of the bigger ones in the Poland. I think they had 2 or 3 games released that are one of the better selling games on Oculus Quest. They released Jupiter Grad 2, Jupiter Grad 2, and now they released Rumors of Realities, the escape room game. So
Can
yeah,
you say the names of that again?
it's how Jupiter Grad. I don't know how to spell it because it's mostly from Polish language.
Okay. That's why I didn't know that couldn't recognize it.
I sent in message if you can read the name in English because yeah
Oh, Jupitergrad. It's almost like Jupitergrad with a
yeah
Y.
it's but it's making fun of Polish words. Yeah, I know why because
Okay.
I yeah, and it's on Oculus Quest. It was one of the better selling games when it released. Yeah, it was showcased on Oculus shows. I think this
Okay,
year
cool.
and last. Yeah. So yeah, so I the first company I went into made started making games because of me. Yeah, and I now had quite a few fine games created by them.
That's cool. And
And what? Yeah,
so you worked for this company. You guys started making games like you always wanted. And how did you get from that to the assets themselves?
it's we created back then. We created few assets on the asset store too. We created
Hmm.
one asset before asset store was released because it was I think it was 1 second. I have my and yeah, we first released the asset in 2010. I think it was for Unity 2.6 I think it was 2.6 Unity when we released first asset. It was released on Unity forums because back then you released your assets on Unity forum rather than on some store. And
Okay.
then Unity asset store was released, and I think a few months later in 2011 we released our first asset. Our first asset was something amazing. It was pop-up windows in Unity. So you can click and window pop up like in today mobile games it's just normal. Back then to do something like that in Unity was hard. You didn't
Mm,
have UGUI, you didn't have any GUI. You have only the Unity ImGUI,
right.
the one that you use in Unity editors nowadays only.
Yeah. So, um, so you guys released assets right at the beginning when they were just coming out.
Yeah. But back then it was quite okay, but we didn't go much into it, yeah, in that company.
Mm-hmm. And then, so when did you decide to do your own thing, or like how did you kind of form your super team?
That's a little further line because I left that company of some different reasons, and I was recruited by space industry company. ASI Polska, child of Airbus spaceships industry. And then I worked with the military, special forces, etc., on creating projects for security using Unity. But
Hmm.
so I mostly worked for some high advanced tools in Unity for different governments. That's
Including spaceships.
that's how much I can tell you about it on the podcast.
Oh, very mysterious.
Yeah. So
That's
we
cool.
worked on some projects that are more business related than games. So after hours, I started making my own games and starting making some smaller assets. Yeah. And during this time, I exactly when I talked to you about meeting Bart and making contact with them, it was after work in the space industry. So I was subcontracting for other games, releasing some games with different people, and I met Bart.
Hmm.
I then left space industry and started working fully as subcontractor and as asset store seller with Bart.
Okay, cool. And how was it going from having probably a good job by the sounds of it to now you got to do it all? You're the business owner, you're the marketing team, you're the planning, you're everything. How was that transition?
It was rough at the beginning, as always, as it can be. And I didn't know how to run a business. I didn't know how to run the self, and I had two companies too, because I had one company myself, and I had one employer that we made subcontract work, and second
Hmm.
half was creating assets with Bart. Yeah, so it
Hmm.
was, I think, but then I worked for 12 hours a day, 10 to 12 hours a day. It was less hours than I did in my previous job in space industry.
Mm.
There was more hours than 12 sometimes. I think my
Wow.
biggest time was uh, working whole week with having only 4 hours or 2 hours of sleep each day.
Sorry, how many hours to sleep?
2 to 4.
What? How often
E-
did that happen? That's a busy job.
Once half year or once 3 months.
Oh, more than I'd want to
Uh,
do. More often than I'd like.
yeah. Mostly after something like that, we went whole company to got 2 weeks of holidays to sleep off the project. Yeah,
Wow.
but it was the most fun and most interesting times I remembered, except doing games. Yeah, so it was
Hmm.
amazing things at work. Yeah.
Hmm. I want to ask you about it, but I wonder how much you're able to share.
I can share that it mostly was at the military or the police or some other polygon working on some stuff that helps these kinds of uniform government agencies to work better.
That sounds so cool. Did it feel like being in a movie?
Yeah.
Have you thought about making games inspired from your experience with that job?
Yeah, I thought about it, but to be truthful, I prefer space games, fully in space, or the fantasy games like Baldur's Gate. Yeah, so it's not
Yeah.
something like that, but I love playing the SWAT games and etc.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So, speaking of things that you like outside of game development, well, do you get time, first of all, to do things outside of, game development tools and programming and art?
Um, yes and no, yeah, because I have time for my family. I have a wife and 2 kids. Yeah,
Hmm.
my daughter is 11, my son is 9 years old, so I spend a lot of time with them.
Hmm.
Nowadays, to be truthful, I work 6 hours a day, something like
Okay.
that. Yeah,
Okay.
sometimes during the release it gets up to 10 or 12 hours for the week, but it's
Hmm.
the release of the project. We have to, as always, it's mostly because we release to different markets. Yeah. I have to be up for about 4 hours in during Polish time. Then I'm going to work something like these hours, like now, when the US market and the other markets around the world are opening. So we have to change the hours we work. Yeah, so we
Right.
can always support and talk with people from different time zones.
Hmm.
Yeah, but yeah, and so this is one thing. Second thing is martial arts. I train martial arts for, I think, 22 years right now, so it always helps to clean a head, or when I have some problem in programming, to think of something different.
Yeah, definitely. What kind of martial arts do you do?
Nowadays, I do kickboxing, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and wrestling. Yeah, I have 3 trainings a week.
Wow, that's a lot. Sounds like you've got a pretty busy life working on your assets, spending time with family, and lots of training as well.
Yeah, to be truthful, when I worked in the space industry and did my assets and contract work, I did one thing that I think helped me a lot, and it helps me nowadays. I read tons of books and made tons of course or training about time management and things like that, and work-life
Hmm.
balance. It helps a lot if you, at the beginning of your career, you start with something like that. For me, yeah, because
Do you
then
have any?
when you have problems, then then you can resolve them quite easily.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a wise thing to do. Do you have any books that you'd recommend to people who
Uh,
are at that
I
stage of
would
their?
recommend Brian Tracy. I think the best of them to start with is Eat That Frog. I think that's. I will just check the name. Yeah, it's Eat That Frog, Brian Tracy.
So Brian Tracy, Eat That Frog:
Yeah,
21 Ways to Stop Procrastinating and Get More Done in Less
yeah.
Time.
It's.
Hmm.
I would say it's quite a short book because it's
Mhm.
just essentials from his pro books. Because there are books he wrote amazing books that I would say 1000 pages long about time management, work-life balance, and I suggest to read them and look at them because they can help a lot. Yeah, the eat that
Doesn't that seem ironic to read a book that's 1,000 pages on time management?
it mostly works this way that you can skip or choose what you need from it. That's
Okay,
why
okay.
he always suggests that you start from Eat That Frog. If Eat That Frog is enough for you, then you're done quickly. If
Okay,
you need
good.
more help and you're making some your project manager in a big company or have many things that you have to work on it, then it's always to get some more knowledge or have a book that you can check one chapter on the problems that you currently have now. Yeah.
Okay, okay, that's good. That's very cool.
Yeah, but this one time. But I would always suggest with Brian Tracy to look for some audiobooks because the best audiobooks he reads himself.
Oh, nice. I like when the author
Because
reads the
he's
book.
a speaker and trainer, so he reads them himself because he then gives you a little bit more remarks from himself about what should you take from this chapter.
Oh, nice. That sounds pretty cool. I'm gonna have to check that out.
Yeah, and second is I would suggest any book by Jack Canfield. He is more, I would say, work-life balance or how to approach problems, projects, and things like that.
Okay, cool.
For example, let's get it. For example, Jack Canfield, the success principles.
The Success Principles:
Yeah,
How to Get from Where You Are to Where You Want to Be. This is by Jack Canfield,
yeah.
and this one's a short one as well.
It's a medium one.
Medium one,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
But it's
But
also
he
useful.
mostly yeah. He writes what he thinks, but he also gives you lots of examples from real life people that succeeded or failed and then succeeded. Yeah, so you can see how different ways to get to success.
Cool. So you've obviously put some time into learning how to manage your time, how to run a business, how to reach your goals, and you now balance your time between, your technical arts, your job, your passion. I assume. Would you consider it your passion?
Yeah, that's what
Yeah.
I said. That it's can't fully tell how much I do outside of creating games and gaming because one of my biggest hobbies is playing games. Still, I love
Okay.
playing
Is it?
games.
What kind
Yeah,
of games do you play?
hmm, uh,
What kind of games do you play?
like now I'm hooked up totally in Baldur's Gate 3. Yeah,
I can't wait to play it.
I have 1 second. Can check. I have not so much, but I have 100 hours in it
Okay.
already.
So
Yes.
you've been
So
playing it.
yeah, a little.
A little bit. So okay, so you spend your time between your work, which is your passion, your martial arts. You play games sometimes, and of course, family time. Do you feel like do you feel like that's a good balance? Are you getting crossing off all the things that you need like in life? Like you've got your passion, you've got your family. It sounds like you guess probably that martial arts is probably social and you have
Yeah.
some relaxed time with the game solitude. That sounds like a pretty good balance. Is that good? Do you feel like that's enough?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's enough. I also have one thing that I always do when I'm at the moment that I'm starting to feel tired. I check what I'm doing. Yeah, this is from time management. I'm closing all the projects that I don't think I need anymore. For
Mm,
example, some assets, some additional stuff, or changing some, for example, amount of trainings, and so on and so on.
okay. That sounds like a productive thing to do.
Yeah. So I would assume something like when you're in company, your finished project, you look back, what went wrong with the project, what went right, and you take some changes to next things you want to do.
Yeah, post mortem, you would probably
Yeah,
call it. Yeah.
but I will always try to do postmortem in my just normal life with all the projects, all the things I'm doing, and if I want to do them further.
Hmm. That's. Do you find it to be valuable? That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. What kind of takeaways have you had from this sort of like reviewing your
For
project?
example, closing my second company where I was doing games and subcontracting games. Yeah,
Uh
I
huh.
did it 2 years ago. So I looked what I'm doing and I checked what thing I want to cut off because I was overwhelmed with work
Uh huh.
and I wanted to go back more into martial arts because back then I did one training a week. For me, it was too few after
Yeah.
I worked a lot, and chose this, which I prefer, doing assets or doing some contracting. I choose doing assets.
Hmm.
But our closing company, I think it took me about half year because I first wanted to finish project for my clients. Then I wanted to find jobs for my employees because back then I had two employees. I found them, I think, 5 or 6 companies that wanted them straight away
Mm-hmm.
because
Nice.
mostly if I suggest someone to company, this company will take them. So I talked with them what companies they want. I checked on the conference. I talked with companies, and I wanted to be sure that they will end up in some good job positions.
That's good.
I think after 2 years, they both senior developers in the company that I recommended them to.
Amazing. That's great.
So it's so this is kind of choices, and this is the kind of changes I used to doing through my life.
Yeah. And so, do you have any recommendations to other entrepreneurs out there on how to do a effective postmortem on your own project?
Yeah. It's hard. It's very hard. I think the biggest thing you have to do is being honest with yourself. Yeah.
Mm,
Do it slowly. Take all the things you do with your projects or with your life, depending if you want to look at your work-life balance on your projects, because there's two different postmortems. Write them up and don't make hasty decisions. Take time, think of them slowly, what you like, what you love, what you want to change, and what you can change. Yeah, because this is also one thing you don't always can just throw away your job because you have your family, you have to have finance stability and so on. But look at the goals you want to achieve in half year, 1 year, 10 years, write them down and try to achieve them little by little each day.
some good advice.
To be truthful, I received this advice. I was lucky with this in my 8th grade in primary school from my music teacher. She gave us to each of us gave a blank card and wanted to write 10 goals we want to achieve by the time we are 20.
Okay.
And each of us was supposed to take it, close it in your pocket, in your wallet, and carry it throughout your life.
Hmm.
I think I still have this card. I have like now 40 goals from this past 10 goals I wanted to do before my 20. I achieved 8. The ninth I achieved when I was, I think, 29. And
Mhm.
that's still one goal only that I want to achieve, but I'm leaving it to a little later, going to Hawaii for 2 months.
Wow.
That's
What were
the
some
only
of the
goal
goals?
this is the only goal I didn't achieve, but that's a goal I can achieve in any moment, but I'm postponing it to have to do it when I'm older. I can just lay on the beach and don't think
Yeah,
about
2 months in
anything.
Hawaii is a goal you can do. Yeah, you don't need to do that before 20. That's a good goal for later. You're
Yeah.
right. What were some of the other ones?
Becoming game developer,
Mm-hmm. Nice.
having a stable company that I can run. So this
Hmm.
was one, and there was some simple going to studies I want, going to the high school I want to go, create a game, and so some simple ones, and some young boys for imagination stuff.
What's the funniest one you had on there?
Telling the girl I was love in the primary school I love her.
Did you do it?
Yeah,
How did that go?
not well.
But you did it.
Yeah,
That's the important part. Did you write a postmortem after that bad incident?
yeah.
That's cute. So you seem like you've been very motivated, very hardworking, um, very driven since you were a kid. How I know this is a question I get asked a lot, and I don't know how to answer it myself, but I'm very curious. Kind of what keeps you motivated? What makes you so driven? Yeah, how do you stay motivated? How do you stay focused?
Staying focused is always heavy as game developer. We all have the backlog of not finished projects,
Hmm.
but staying the things that motivates me the most is doing what I love. Yeah? I love creating games. I loved it from the moment I first played the video game many years ago, and I think the second thing is doing this postmortem for all the projects I do,
Hmm.
checking if I'm on the way to achieve what I love and what I want to achieve in next few years or few months. Yeah, if I'm making steps to it, or if I'm going back, if I'm making some steps back. Steps backs are also good, but if you make them too many of them, you can be demotivated. You can be going the wrong direction. And I think I can cite one quote. Just I'll just let me get it to the right screen so I can look at it and quote. This is the quote from Steve Jobs. I read it in his biography many years ago. He said something like that. When I was 17, I read a quote that went something like that. If you live each day as if it were your last, someday you'll most certainly be right. It made an impression on me. Since then, for past 33 years, I have looked in the mirror every morning and asked myself, if today were the last day of my life, would I want to do what I am about to do today?
Hmm. Do you
And this
think about
is
that every day?
most of the most of the days. Yeah, that's a little postmortem I do each and every day.
At the
Yeah,
end of the day,
at the beginning.
at the beginning.
At the beginning, if the things I have planned for this day are the ones I want to do.
Huh. That's a hard thing to think about because living day to day is so different than living sort of when you're especially like when you're on a long-term project. Every day isn't going to be fun and exciting. There's going to
Yeah,
be days where it's tricky, days where you got to push through, might come across a lot of problems, and you just got to dig into them.
exactly. But if you think about the goal you want to reach, and if this hard day, I had the days like that. For example, the space industry, when I didn't sleep for 3 days
Hmm.
and just took 10 minutes nap, getting back because somebody called me, and Standing, going into bathroom, getting water on my face. Is this one to do? And going and doing what I needed to do back then. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it took me always. I was thinking one thing: if this what I'm doing will get me to my goal,
Yeah.
if this is I want to do to achieve what I want to achieve. Yeah. So yeah, it's hard, but if you start thinking about this way, you can quickly see that each hard day brings you sometimes further to the goal you want. For example, last week, oh, it was terrible week for working. I have a problem. I'm working on some post-processing stuff in Unity, and Unity shader graph for doing something like that is horrible. But I have to do some things in the shader graph to check
Mm-hmm.
if it's possible for the users to use them more easily.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I lost about 60 hours of work last week doing math.
Mm.
Just simple low level math in shaders.
Mm-hmm.
But I knew that it will get me to the place I want to be. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly I did it the math doing something else also. So I sit down in Baldur's Gate and I thought sometimes maybe this approach. Checking, no. Okay, going back to game.
That's interesting. And you know, that's actually, I can relate to that a lot, is um you know, almost using the thing that you're working towards as your anchor, and always checking in, am I in the right direction? Am I going towards that direction? And I guess I've always heard these quotes of like, is this was my last day? Is this what I want to do? But I suppose you have to look at it in such a way where the thing I want to do every day is the thing that is working towards something exciting, because that's what's going to be fulfilling.
Yeah.
Yeah. One last question on the similar topic. Staying motivated is one thing, but do you have any recommendations for staying disciplined on the days where you don't feel motivated?
Depends on how many days of not being motivated you have.
Okay.
Yeah. In all kinds of jobs, mostly you should have some days when you can have holiday. You can take some day off. Yeah. If you're working yourself, you also should be able to take a day off. It's needed. That's one thing. Yeah. If you feel you're terribly, you don't have strength, take a day off. Do something fun.
Mm-hmm.
Do something different. And the second thing about being motivated, I think, is two things. One thing is care for your mental health. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
if you have some mental problems, go get help. I know it's easy to say, but you need it.
Mm.
I have seen too many of my friends having mental problems because they worked too hard to achieve what they wanted in game industry. This industry can be very hard, very
Yeah,
very hard. So
absolutely.
check up with this thing.
Mm.
Second thing, learn to be motivated and learn to be disciplined. I know it's easy, but there's also one quote I learned is the biggest investment you can do is investing in yourself, not in a house, not in cars, but getting the money you getting from your job and investing it back in yourself. Because
Mm.
if you are able to work 2 times better in the same amount of time, you are going to get the money you invested in yourself 2 times, 4 times, 10 times faster than you're doing it right now. So getting to trainings, reading the books, for example, the ones that I showed, and getting better at the things that you lack will get you to the moments, to the things that you want to achieve faster and better.
Mm.
I things that I did that helped me a lot is finding my weakest things and
Mm-hmm.
making them and changing them into something that can help me to achieve goals. If you can't do something yourself, find someone who can help you, work with someone that can do things that you can't. Example, I'm not a designer. I never will be a designer. I can't imagine things. I can't think of, for example, I want to create a game. I can't imagine how the game will look like. I can't imagine level design, how it will look. That's why I work greatly with Bart, because he can imagine things in an instance, and I can make them happen. I
Right.
can make people and help people create the things that they imagine them, even if they are not possible right now. I can make tools, shaders, or things that can help them. And I chose that my weakness can be changed, that I can help others with my strengths.
That's a good way to look at it. I like that. Cool. Wow. Thank you for sharing a lot of the wisdom that you've acquired, it sounds like, through a number of different projects and chapters of your life. Thanks for sharing about how you make assets. It was really cool to hear how you guys structure your team, hear about how you put them together, and the huge amount of work that goes into each of them. And it really does show. You guys do an amazing job. I can't say enough good stuff about it.
Thank you.
Yeah, you guys are rocking it. So yeah, thanks for coming on. Do you have anything you want to wrap up with, or any last thing you would like to say?
Have fun creating games. That's the last thing I will say.
It's easy to lose sight of having the fun, isn't it? Sometimes when you're
Yeah,
really
it is.
you're
It
really in the
is.
depths of things. Good advice again. All right, thank you very much, Pavel.
Thank you.
Take care.
You too. Bye.